Ryan is the weak link holding us back, Victoria said to the room full of investors. I stood frozen in the doorway of our conference room, listening to my business partner destroy my reputation. For 18 months, we'd built Dataflow together. I'd coded the entire platform while she handled marketing and sales. Now she was telling our potential Series A investors that I was dead weight. Through the glass walls, I could see 12 suits nodding as Victoria continued her presentation. Charts and graphs filled the screen behind her. Our user growth, revenue projections, market analysis, all built on the foundation of my code, my sleepless nights, my technical expertise. Yet somehow, I was the problem. We need fresh technical leadership to scale properly, she continued, clicking to the next slide. Someone with enterprise experience who can attract top talent. Her voice carried that confident tone that had convinced me to trust her as a partner 2 years ago. The same tone she was now using to push me out of my own company. I quietly backed away from the conference room and returned to my desk. My hands shook as I opened my laptop and began typing. If Victoria wanted to play this game, she had no idea what she'd just started. 2 years earlier, Victoria and I had met at a tech meetup in downtown Seattle. I was a senior software engineer at Microsoft, tired of corporate politics and dreaming of building something meaningful. She was a marketing consultant with big ideas and even bigger ambitions. We bonded over shared frustrations with the enterprise software market and its outdated solutions. Victoria's pitch was compelling. She'd identified a gap in data visualization tools for mid-market companies. Existing solutions were either too complex for small teams or too expensive for growing businesses. She had the business acumen and industry connections. I had the technical skills to build something revolutionary. We spent weeks refining the concept. Victoria would handle marketing, sales, and investor relations. I would design and develop the platform. Equal partners, equal equity, equal say in company decisions, or so I thought. The early days were incredible. Working 16-hour days in my apartment, surviving on coffee and determination. Victoria secured our first pilot customers while I built the MVP. Within 6 months, we had paying clients and positive cash flow. Dataflow was becoming everything we'd dreamed it could be. But somewhere along the way, Victoria started changing. Or maybe she was always this way, and I'd been too focused on the code to notice. The first red flag came 8 months into our partnership. Victoria had been handling all client communications, which made sense since she was better with people than I was. But during a routine product demo, our biggest client mentioned features I'd never heard of. When will the advanced analytics dashboard be ready? The client asked. I looked at Victoria, confused. We'd never discussed advanced analytics. Our roadmap focused on core visualization features first. Victoria smoothly deflected, promising updates soon. After the call, I confronted her. What advanced analytics dashboard? She waved me off dismissively. Just something I mentioned to keep them interested. We can build it later. But she'd already committed to a delivery timeline without consulting me. This became a pattern. Victoria started making technical promises to clients without understanding the complexity involved. She'd commit to features that would take months to develop, then pressure me to deliver in weeks. When I explained the technical constraints, she'd get frustrated. You're being too rigid, she'd say. Successful startups move fast and break things. But breaking things was easy when you weren't the one who had to fix them. I was the one staying up all night debugging crashes caused by rushed development cycles. The equity split started bothering me around month 10. We were officially 50-50 partners, but Victoria controlled all external relationships. She spoke to investors, clients, and advisors while I stayed buried in code. To the outside world, she was the face of Dataflow. During investor meetings, Victoria would present our progress using metrics I generated but never got credit for creating. She'd discuss technical achievements without acknowledging my role in building them. When investors asked technical questions, she'd defer to me briefly before steering the conversation back to business metrics. I started feeling like a highly paid contractor rather than a co-founder. Victoria made decisions about company direction without consulting me. She hired marketing staff and signed expensive software contracts without my input. But when development timelines slipped, suddenly everything was my responsibility. The breaking point came when she unilaterally decided to hire a head of product. "We need someone who understands enterprise sales cycles," she explained. "But this person would essentially manage my work and prioritize features without technical understanding." I realized Victoria was slowly positioning herself as the CEO while relegating me to CTO, despite our equal partnership agreement. She was building a narrative where business leadership was more valuable than technical execution. Our Series A fundraising process began in month 15. Victoria had been cultivating relationships with venture capital firms for months without involving me in the strategy. She'd crafted a compelling story about Dataflow's market opportunity and growth potential. But during the due diligence process, I noticed troubling patterns. Victoria would schedule technical interviews with potential investors, then brief me afterward on what to emphasize. She was essentially scripting my responses to highlight her vision rather than my technical insights. The financial projections she presented were aggressive, bordering on unrealistic. She'd committed to user growth targets that would require significant infrastructure investments. When I tried to discuss the technical challenges of scaling, she'd minimize my concerns in front of investors. "Ryan tends to be conservative with estimates," she'd say with a dismissive laugh. "That's why we balance technical precision with business ambition." The investors would nod approvingly, but I felt undermined and marginalized in my own company. Victoria started holding investor calls without me, claiming they were just preliminary conversations about market positioning. But I later learned these calls included detailed technical discussions where she spoke on my behalf about capabilities she didn't understand. The partnership started unraveling during our most promising investor meeting. Wellington Ventures had expressed serious interest in leading our Series A round. Victoria had prepared extensively, creating polished presentations and financial models that painted Dataflow as the next unicorn. During the technical deep dive, the lead partner asked specific questions about our architecture and scalability plans. I began explaining our microservices approach and database optimization strategies. Victoria kept interrupting to redirect toward business metrics and market opportunity. "The technical details are important," she said, "but what really matters is our customer acquisition strategy and revenue growth." She was essentially telling sophisticated investors that technology was secondary to marketing in a software company. After the meeting, Victoria was ecstatic. "They loved our vision," she said. But I'd noticed the investors' expressions during her interruptions. They seemed concerned about the disconnect between our technical capabilities and business promises. 2 days later, Wellington's analyst called me directly for a follow-up technical discussion. During that call, I learned Victoria had been making claims about our platform's capabilities that weren't entirely accurate. She'd oversold features that were still in development and minimized technical challenges we hadn't solved yet. Wellington Ventures invited us back for a final presentation to their full partnership. This was our chance to secure $7 million in Series A funding. Victoria spent days preparing, refining our pitch deck and practicing her presentation. The night before the meeting, Victoria called me into our conference room. "I've been thinking about our equity structure," she said. "As we scale, we need clear leadership hierarchy. I should be CEO with majority control." I stared at her in disbelief. We were equal partners. We'd built this company together. "That's not what we agreed to," I said. She pulled out a stack of papers. "Actually, if you read our original partnership agreement, there's language about operational control during funding rounds." She was technically correct. The agreement included provisions for one partner to assume CEO responsibilities during major fundraising. But we'd discussed this as a formality, not an actual power grab. Victoria had been planning this for months. "The investors need to see strong leadership," she continued. "They're more comfortable with a clear business leader than technical co-CEOs." She offered me a counter-proposal: remain as CTO with reduced equity but guaranteed employment for 3 years. I realized this wasn't a negotiation. This was an ultimatum disguised as a partnership discussion. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through our office, looking at the servers humming quietly in our makeshift data center. Every line of code, every database optimization, every security protocol had come from my keyboard. Dataflow was my creation, but Victoria was claiming ownership. I opened my laptop and began documenting everything. Code repositories, development timelines, architectural decisions. I'd built comprehensive records of my contributions, but never thought I'd need them to prove my value to my own business partner. The irony was bitter. Victoria needed me more than she realized. Our platform was built on custom frameworks I'd developed. The algorithms that made our data visualizations unique were my innovations. Without my technical expertise, Dataflow was just an expensive marketing experiment. But Victoria had positioned herself as the business mastermind while portraying me as a replaceable technician. To outside observers, she was the entrepreneur with vision while I was just the programmer who executed her ideas. I spent hours reading our partnership agreement, looking for leverage I might have overlooked. The document was comprehensive but favored whoever controlled day-to-day operations. Victoria had been smart to establish herself as the external face of the company. The Wellington Ventures meeting arrived like a storm I couldn't avoid. Victoria looked confident in her tailored suit, armed with polished slides and practiced responses. I felt like an outsider at my own company's most important presentation. The first 30 minutes went smoothly. Victoria presented our market opportunity, user growth metrics, and revenue projections with the skill of a seasoned entrepreneur. The investors asked probing questions about customer acquisition costs and competitive positioning. She handled everything expertly. Then came the technical questions. "Can you walk us through your data processing pipeline?" asked Dr. Patricia Zhao, Wellington's technical partner. Victoria glanced at me expectantly, but before I could respond, she jumped in. "Our architecture is designed for massive scale," she said confidently. "Ryan has built a robust system that can handle exponential user growth." She began describing technical concepts she clearly didn't understand, using buzzwords without explaining actual implementation. I watched the investors' faces change. Dr. Zhao frowned as Victoria explained our blockchain-enabled data processing and AI-powered visualization algorithms, neither of which actually existed in our platform. After Victoria finished her technical fantasy, Dr. Zhao turned to me. "Ryan, can you provide more specific details about your architecture?" This was my moment to clarify Victoria's misrepresentations and explain our actual technical capabilities. But before I could speak, Victoria interrupted again. "I think what Dr. Zhao really wants to understand is how our technical foundation supports our business model." She launched into another marketing pitch, completely avoiding the technical discussion. The investors exchanged glances, clearly recognizing the disconnect between Victoria's claims and technical reality. Dr. Zhao attempted several more technical questions, but Victoria kept. I spent the next 10 minutes explaining our actual architecture, acknowledging limitations Victoria had glossed over, and providing realistic timelines for future development. The investors seemed relieved to finally get honest technical information. After the meeting, Victoria was furious. "You made us look weak," she said as soon as we reached the parking garage. "Investors don't want to hear about technical challenges. They want confidence and vision." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Victoria, you told them we have blockchain integration. We don't even use blockchain technology. You described AI features that don't exist." She waved dismissively. "Those are aspirational features. Startups always present their vision, not just current capabilities." "That's not vision," I said. "That's deception. Dr. Zhao knew you were lying the moment you mentioned blockchain." Victoria's face hardened. "Maybe the problem isn't my presentation. Maybe the problem is your inability to build what I promise." The accusation stung because it revealed how she really saw our partnership. In Victoria's mind, her job was to dream big and make promises. My job was to magically turn those promises into reality, regardless of technical feasibility or timeline constraints. We drove back to the office in silence. I knew our partnership was effectively over, but I didn't yet understand how far Victoria was willing to go to preserve her narrative. Wellington Ventures called 3 days later. Victoria took the call in her office with the door closed. I tried to focus on code, but I could hear her raised voice through the walls. The conversation lasted over an hour. When she emerged, Victoria's expression was unreadable. "They want another meeting," she said carefully. "Just technical due diligence this time." I felt a spark of hope. Maybe the investors recognized the value of honest technical discussion. But Victoria's next words crushed that optimism. "They have concerns about our technical leadership capacity." Victoria's answer was carefully rehearsed. "I explained that you're a brilliant programmer but might not be the right person to lead a larger technical team. They agreed that fresh leadership could accelerate our growth." She was spinning my termination as a positive business decision rather than acknowledging her own mistakes. That evening, I did something I'd never done before. I called Dr. Zhao directly, using her contact information from the investor materials. "I wanted to clarify some technical points from our presentation," I said. Dr. Zhao was surprisingly candid. "Ryan, we were impressed with your technical expertise, but concerned about the disconnect between technical capabilities and business claims." She paused. "We've seen this pattern before in startups where business leadership oversells technical readiness." I explained the pressure I'd faced to support unrealistic timelines and feature commitments. Dr. Zhao listened carefully, asking specific questions about development challenges and resource constraints. "Have you considered that this might not be the right partnership for you?" she asked finally. The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on saving our Series A that I hadn't considered whether I wanted to continue working with Victoria. "What do you mean?" I asked. Dr. Zhao's response was thoughtful. "Strong technical founders often thrive better when they control product direction rather than just implementing someone else's vision." Her words planted a seed that would grow into something Victoria never anticipated. The next morning, Victoria called an emergency team meeting. Our entire company, all 8 employees, gathered in our conference room. Victoria looked confident and determined, like she was about to announce good news. "I have an important update about our Series A progress," she began. "Wellington Ventures is moving forward with their investment, but they've requested some organizational changes to support our growth phase. She clicked to a slide titled Leadership Transition Plan. My stomach dropped. Effective immediately, we'll be restructuring our technical team with new leadership better suited for enterprise-scale development. Victoria was firing me in front of the entire company, but presenting it as a strategic business decision rather than personal betrayal. She'd spent days crafting this narrative to minimize backlash and maintain team morale. Ryan has been instrumental in getting us to this point, she continued, but as we scale, we need different expertise. She offered me a consulting role to ensure smooth knowledge transfer to my replacement. I sat there listening to my business partner destroy my career while portraying herself as a decisive leader making tough choices for company success. After the meeting, our employees approached me privately. Most were shocked and confused. They'd worked closely with me for months and understood my technical contributions. Several threatened to quit in protest. Don't, I told them. You have families to support and careers to build. Victoria's decision doesn't reflect your value to the company. But privately, I was documenting everything. Names, dates, technical contributions, code repositories. That afternoon, Victoria presented her transition timeline. I had 2 weeks to document my code and train my replacement. She'd already hired someone, a former enterprise architect with impressive credentials but no understanding of our specific platform. The new CTO's first decision was to schedule a complete code review to identify technical debt and optimization opportunities. It was a polite way of auditing my work to find problems that could justify my termination. But I'd built Dataflow with enterprise standards from the beginning. My code was well documented, efficiently structured, and thoroughly tested. If anything, the audit would prove my competence rather than reveal problems. Victoria seemed nervous about this, but she'd already committed to the narrative that technical leadership was holding the company back. During my final week at Dataflow, I began quietly preparing for what came next. I couldn't compete directly with Dataflow due to non-compete clauses, but I could build something better in a different market segment. I'd been thinking about Dr. Zhao's question regarding technical founders controlling product direction. What if I built a company where technical excellence drove business strategy rather than the other way around? The irony was perfect. Victoria had spent months convincing investors that business leadership mattered more than technical expertise. I was about to prove her wrong. I spent evenings researching market opportunities Victoria had overlooked. Smaller companies needed data visualization tools, but they wanted simplicity and AFF audibility rather than enterprise complexity. There was a massive underserved market that Dataflow was ignoring. My new company would focus on technical elegance and user experience rather than buzzword-heavy marketing and aggressive sales tactics. I'd build something genuinely innovative instead of just promising innovation in investor presentations. Victoria had no idea that her betrayal was about to create her biggest competitor. I launched Streamline Analytics from my apartment 2 weeks after leaving Dataflow. No co-founder, no investors, no marketing budget. Just me, my laptop, and a determination to build something exceptional. The first version was radically different from Dataflow. Instead of trying to be everything to everyone, Streamline focused on one thing: making data visualization incredibly simple for small teams. No complex setup, no enterprise integration requirements, no sales calls. I built the entire platform in 6 weeks, working 18-hour days fueled by anger and ambition. The code was clean, the interface was intuitive, and the performance was lightning fast. Everything Dataflow should have been before Victoria's feature creep and unrealistic timelines. My pricing strategy was deliberately disruptive. While Dataflow charged thousands per month for enterprise licenses, Streamline cost $50 monthly for small teams. I could afford lower margins because I had no marketing budget and minimal overhead. The beta launch was quiet. I sent invitations to 50 small companies, asking for feedback on a new data visualization tool. Within 24 hours, I had 30 sign-ups and overwhelmingly positive responses. Word spread quickly through startup communities and small business networks. Streamline's simplicity and affordability attracted customers who found Dataflow unnecessarily complex and expensive. Within 3 months, I had 200 paying customers and growing fast. I reinvested every dollar into product development. No flashy marketing campaigns, no expensive office space, no business development team. Just relentless focus on building the best possible product for my target market. The contrast with Victoria's approach was striking. While she spent money on conferences, sales teams, and investor relations, I spent time writing code and talking directly to customers. My overhead was minimal, but my growth was sustainable. 6 months after launch, Streamline had 500 customers and was profitable. I was generating more revenue per employee than Dataflow, despite having no employees besides myself. Victoria's business expertise was proving less valuable than technical execution combined with market focus. Industry publications began noticing Streamline's growth. TechCrunch wrote about the bootstrapped startup disrupting enterprise data visualization. The article mentioned my background at Dataflow without elaborating on the circumstances of my departure. Victoria reached out for the first time since my termination. "Congratulations on Streamline's coverage," her email said. "Perhaps we could grab coffee and discuss potential partnership opportunities." I almost laughed at the transparency. Victoria wanted to understand how serious a threat Streamline represented to Dataflow's market position. She was probably also curious about whether I'd violated any non-compete agreements. I agreed to meet, partly from curiosity and partly from a desire to see how she'd handle the conversation. We met at the same coffee shop where we'd originally planned Dataflow's launch strategy 2 years earlier. Victoria looked stressed, despite attempting to project confidence. "Streamline is getting impressive traction," she said carefully. "Have you considered that there might be synergies between our platforms?" She was fishing for information about my growth plans and customer base. But I was more interested in learning about Dataflow's progress since my departure. "How's the Series A going?" I asked. Victoria's smile faltered slightly. "Wellington is still conducting due diligence. These processes always take longer than expected. Through industry contacts, I learned the real story behind Dataflow's Series A delays. The technical audit had revealed exactly what I'd expected. My code was solid, but Victoria's promises to investors didn't match platform capabilities. Wellington Ventures was concerned about management credibility after discovering discrepancies between marketing claims and technical reality. The new CTO had tried to address these gaps, but integrating new features into my existing architecture was proving more difficult than Victoria had anticipated. Meanwhile, Streamline continued growing. I'd reached 800 customers and was hiring my first employee, a brilliant UX designer who'd left a larger company to join my mission-driven startup. The irony was beautiful. Victoria had fired me for allegedly holding Dataflow back, but my departure had actually created their biggest problem. She'd lost institutional knowledge, technical leadership, and market credibility all at once. More importantly, she'd created a competitor who understood her weaknesses better than anyone else. I knew exactly which features Dataflow struggled to deliver and which customer segments they served poorly. 12 months after leaving Dataflow, I received an unexpected call from Dr. Zhao at Wellington Ventures. "Ryan, I wanted to congratulate you on Streamline's success," she said. We've been watching your progress with great interest. Dr. Zhao explained that Wellington had decided not to invest in Dataflow after all. The management team couldn't provide the technical leadership we needed for a Series A investment. She paused meaningfully. But we're very interested in discussing Streamline's funding plans. I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. The same investors who Victoria claimed preferred business leadership over technical expertise were now courting the technical founder they'd been told was a liability. Dr. Zhao continued, "We believe technical founders who understand their market often build more sustainable companies than pure business operators." This was the complete opposite of Victoria's narrative about investor preferences. I agreed to preliminary discussions, though I wasn't sure I wanted external investment. Streamline was profitable and growing organically. But the validation from Wellington Ventures felt like poetic justice. The acquisition offer came from an unexpected source. CloudTech Solutions, a major enterprise software company, had been quietly evaluating the data visualization market for potential acquisitions. They'd identified Streamline as the most innovative platform in the space. CloudTech's CEO called me directly. "We've been impressed with what you've built," he said. "Your technical architecture is exactly what we need for our enterprise customers." He offered to acquire Streamline for $100 million, with additional earnouts based on integration success. The offer was life-changing, but also validating in ways beyond the financial impact. CloudTech specifically valued the technical excellence that Victoria had dismissed as less important than business development. "Your platform scalability and performance metrics are exceptional," the CEO continued. "We've evaluated several competitors, but your code quality and architectural decisions are clearly superior. I thought about Victoria's prediction that I couldn't build enterprise-scale software without proper business leadership." CloudTech's technical team had spent months evaluating exactly that capability. I accepted CloudTech's acquisition offer after 2 weeks of due diligence. The technical audit process was the complete opposite of my experience with Victoria. CloudTech's engineers appreciated architectural decisions she'd never understood. "Your microservices design and database optimization are exactly what we'd build ourselves," their lead architect told me. "This is the cleanest codebase we've seen in any acquisition." The acquisition announcement made headlines in tech publications. Bootstrapped startup acquired for $100 million after just 18 months, read the TechCrunch headline. The article detailed Streamline's organic growth and technical innovation. Several publications reached out for interviews about building a successful startup without traditional business partnerships or venture funding. I kept my responses focused on technical excellence and customer focus rather than my history with Victoria. But the startup community understood the subtext. Everyone knew about my departure from Dataflow and Victoria's claims about technical leadership limitations. The acquisition proved that technical founders could build valuable companies without business co-founders. Victoria sent a congratulatory email after the acquisition announcement. "Amazing news about CloudTech," she wrote. "I always knew you had the potential to build something special." The revisionist history was remarkable. Victoria was attempting to claim partial credit for my success while ignoring her role in forcing my departure from Dataflow. She was rewriting our partnership as a positive influence on my entrepreneurial development. I didn't respond to her email, but I learned through mutual contacts that Dataflow was struggling. They'd never closed their Series A round and were running low on cash. The new CTO had introduced technical debt while trying to implement Victoria's unrealistic feature promises. Several Dataflow employees had reached out asking about opportunities at CloudTech. They'd watched my success from a distance and realized that technical leadership might be more valuable than they'd been told. The contrast between our outcomes was stark. Victoria's business-focused approach had led to stagnation and financial problems. My technical-focused approach had led to profitable growth and a successful exit. 2 years after Victoria called me the weak link, I was featured on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine. The article was titled Technical Founders: The Secret to Startup Success, and used my story as an example of how engineering expertise could drive business outcomes. During the interview, I was asked about common mistakes in startup partnerships. The biggest error is assuming that business skills are more valuable than technical execution, I said. In software companies, great code often matters more than great marketing. I never mentioned Victoria by name, but the startup community understood the reference. My success had become a case study in the value of technical leadership and the dangers of sidelining founding engineers. The final irony came 6 months later when CloudTech announced they were hiring me as CTO of their entire data platform division. The weak link who supposedly couldn't scale technical teams was now responsible for managing 200 engineers across multiple products. Victoria had taught me an important lesson, though not the one she intended. She'd shown me that technical founders shouldn't compromise their vision to satisfy business partners who don't understand the product they're trying to sell. Sometimes the best revenge is simply building something better. I heard Dataflow finally shut down last month. Victoria's LinkedIn profile now lists her as an entrepreneurship consultant. I'm sure she has plenty of advice about the importance of business leadership in startups.